third largest tech economy, trillion-dollar tech economy after the United States and China. But as a politician, I look at the big problems that we face. For example, when we have the next pandemic, we don't want to have to wait a year before we get the vaccine. And if AI can shrink the time it takes to get that vaccine to a month, then that is a massive step forward for humanity. At the moment in the UK, and I think most of the developed world, voters are very angry about their levels of tax. If AI can transform the way our public services are delivered and lead to more productive public services with lower tax levels, that is a very big win. But I think we have to allow the technology to grow. We have to have our eyes open to the guardrails that we're going to need. The UK also plays a very big role in global security. We need to be sure, as I was saying to Sam earlier this morning, that a rogue actor isn't going to be able to use AI to build nuclear weapons. So we need to have our eyes open, which is why the AI Safety Summit that Rishi Sunak organised at the end of last year was so important. But we need to do it in a light touch way, because we've just got to be a bit humble. There's so much that we don't know, and we need to understand the potential where this is going to lead us at a stage where no one really can answer that question.
I feel, Albert, that this is an area where regulation is likely to be people are going to be most worried about the issue of trust, which is the combination of AI and medical. And is this, is it safe for me to listen to this doctor, to take this drug? This has all been developed in a computer somewhere. Is there a way to alleviate that?
I think there is. First of all, we need to understand that AI is a very powerful tool. So in the hands of bad people, it can do bad things for the world. But in the hands of good people, it can do great things for the world. And I'm certain right now that the benefits clearly outweighs the risks. But I think we need regulations. Right now, there is a lot of debate how those regulations will set guardrails. And there are some countries that they are more focused on how to protect against the bad players. There are some countries that they are more focused on how to enable the scientists to do all the great things with this tool that we want the world to have, as in the next pandemic. I think we need to find the right balance that will protect, at the same time, enable the world to move on.
Sam, when I look at technology, my fear is often what will bad people do with this technology? But there are many people who fear this much larger issue of the technology ruling over us, right? You've always taken a benign view of AI, or relatively benign view. But people like Elon Musk and sometimes Bill Gates and other very smart people who know a lot about the field are very, very worried. Why is it that you think they're wrong? What is it that they're not understanding about AI?
Well, I don't think they're guaranteed to be wrong. I mean, I think there's a spirit, there's a part of it that's right, which is this is a technology that's clearly very powerful, and that we don't know, we cannot say with certainty exactly what's going to happen. And that's the case with all new major technological revolutions. But it's easy to imagine with this one that it's going to have massive effects on the world, and that it could go very wrong. The technological direction that we've been trying to push it in is one that we think we can make safe, and that includes a lot of things. It's we believe in iterative deployment, so we put this technology out into the world along the way, so people get used to it, so we have time as a society, our institutions have time to have these discussions, figure out how to regulate this, how to put some guardrails in place.
Can you technically kind of put guardrails in, write a kind of constitution for an AI system? Would that work?
If you look at the progress from GPT-3 to GPT-4 about how well it can align itself to a set of values, we've made massive progress there. Now, there's a harder question than the technical one, which is who gets to decide what those values are, and what the defaults are, what the bounds are, how does it work in this country versus that country, what am I allowed to do with it versus not. So that's a big societal question, one of the biggest. But from the technological approach, I think there's room for optimism, although the alignment techniques we have now, I don't think will scale all the way to much more powerful systems. We're going to need to invent new things. So I think it's good that people are afraid of the downsides of this technology. I think it's good that we're talking about it. I think it's good that we and others are being held to a high standard. And, you know, we can draw on a lot of lessons from the past about how technology has been made to be safe, and also how the different stakeholders in society have handled their negotiations about what safe means and what safe enough is. But I have a lot of empathy for the general nervousness and discomfort of the world towards companies like us and, you know, the other people doing similar things, which is like, why is our future in their hands? And why are they doing this? Why do they get to do this? And I think it is on us. I mean, I believe, and I think the world now believes, that the benefit here is so tremendous that we should go do this. But I think it is on us to figure out a way to get the input from society about how we're going to make these decisions, not only about, you know, what the values of the system are, but what the safety thresholds are and what kind of global coordination we need to ensure that stuff that happens in one country does not super negatively impact another, to show that picture. So I think not having caution, not feeling the gravity of what the potential stakes are, would be very bad. So I like that people are nervous about it. We have our own nervousness, but we believe that we can manage through it. And the only way to do that is to put the technology in the hands of people, let society and the technology co-evolve, and sort of step by step, with a very tight feedback loop and course correction, build these systems that deliver tremendous value while meeting the sort of safety requirements.
Mark, what do you think about this whole question?
Well, I think, look, we've all seen the movies, you know, we saw the movies, we saw Hal, and we saw Her, and we saw Minority Report, and we saw War Games, and, you know, our imaginations are filled with what happens when we have an AI that's going well and an AI that's going wrong. And, you know, we're moving into a fantastical new world. You know, and I love it when Sam always says, he has the sign above his desk that says, I don't know what's going to happen next, exactly, because we don't completely know exactly what is going to happen next. I think for our customers...
It says no one...
What does it say?
It says no one knows what happens next,
no
which
one
I think
knows
is an
what's going to
important
happen
difference.
next. So, thank you for that correction. So, I will just say, hopefully the spirit of what I was saying was correct. So, you know, our customers are coming to us all the time, and they're saying, hey, we want to use this, and, you know, our customers, what do our customers want? They want more margin, they want more productivity, they want better customer relationships, and they want AI to give that to them. And so I just got back from Milan, and I was down with Gucci, and they got 300 call center operators down there, and they're like using our Service Cloud, and they want to use Einstein, which is our, you know, AI platform. It'll do 1 trillion predictive and generative transactions this week. We're partnered with Sam, and it's very exciting. It has a trust layer that lets our customers feel comfortable using their product. And I said to them, what do you really want? And I'm not sure what they want. Are they looking to replace people? Are they looking to add people, to get some kind of value? You know, it's an experimental time for a lot of enterprises when it comes to AI. So we put it in there. It's now a test that's been going on 6-9 months. It's amazing. And something incredible happened. This call center, which was doing, like, you know, you buy something at Gucci and then it needs repair, or, you know, it has to get fixed or replaced or whatever. You call these folks and they're talking to you, and I walked in and they said, this is amazing what's happened. I said, what happened? Revenue's up 30%. Revenues are up 30%? Yeah. How did that happen? Well, these were all just service professionals, but they now have this generative AI, and predictive as well. They've all been augmented. They've all been augmented. The service professionals actually, and this is what they told me, are now also sales professionals and marketing professionals. They're selling products, not just servicing them. They're adding value to the customers, and it's a miraculous thing. Their morale went way up. They can't believe what they've been able to achieve. They didn't even know what they didn't know about the products. It all was kind of being tutored and mentored and inspired to them by the AI. And that idea that Einstein could augment them And that then, yes, they got their revenue, they got their margin that they so badly wanted. Even the WEF, this app that you're all using is running on Einstein. So those predictions that you're getting, hey, because you like this AI panel, you should try that AI panel, and you may look over here. That is our Einstein platform giving you those ideas. So this is really the power. But for our customers, and this is a little different between my good friend Sam and my company, your data is not our product. We're not going to take your data. We're not going to use your data. We do not train on your data. We have a separation. We have a trust layer. We never take or use our customers' data into our AI. So your data is not our product. That's very important. That's core. And our core value is also trust. Trust and customer success and innovation and quality, sustainability. Our core values have to be represented in how we're building these products for our customers. That is really critical for our teams to understand. But to back to your comment and Sam's comment, look, this is a big moment for AI. AI took a huge leap forward in the last year, 2 years. Like exactly what Sam said, between 1 and 2 and 3 and then 4, and then I'm sure 5, 6, and 7 are coming. And here's the thing. It could go really wrong. And the thing we don't want, we just want to make sure that people don't get hurt. We don't want something to go really wrong. That's why we're going to that safety summit. That's why we're talking about trust. We don't want to have a Hiroshima moment. We've seen technology go really wrong, and we saw a Hiroshima. We don't want to see an AI Hiroshima. We want to make sure that we've got our head around this now. And that's why I think these conversations and this governance and getting clear about what our core values are is so important. And yes, our customers are going to get more margin. Those CEOs are going to be so happy. But at the end of the day, we have to do it with the right values.
Mark brought up the issue of data and data usage. So, Sam, I have to ask you, the New York Times is suing you and claims that the gist of what the Times is saying is that OpenAI, other AI companies as well, uses New York Times articles as an input that allows it to make the language predictions that it makes. And it does so excessively and improperly and without compensating the New York Times. Isn't it true that at the end of the day, every AI model is using all this data that is in the public domain, and shouldn't the people who wrote that data, whether it's newspapers or comedians who've written jokes, shouldn't they all get compensated?
Many thoughts about that. I'll start with the difference between training and what we display when a user sends a query. By the way, with the New York Times, as I had understood it, we were in productive negotiations with them. We wanted to pay the New York Times a lot of money to display their content. We were as surprised as anybody else to read that they were suing us in the New York Times. That was sort of a strange thing. But we are open to training on the New York Times, but it's not our priority. We actually don't need to train on their data. I think this is something that people don't understand, is any one particular training source, it doesn't move the needle for us that much. What we want to do with the content owners, like the New York Times, and like deals that we have done with many other publishers, and we'll do more over time, is when a user says, hey, ChatGPT, what happened at Davos today? We would like to display content, link out, show brands of places like the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal or any other great publication, and say, here's what happened today. Here's this real-time information and then we'd like to pay for that. We'd like to drive traffic for that. But it's displaying that information when the user queries, not using it to train the model. We could also train the model on it, but it's not our priority. We're happy not to, and that, I think everyone...
Well, you're happy not to with any specific one, but if you don't train on any data, you don't have any facts to train the data on.
I was going to get there to the next point. One thing that I expect to start changing is these models will be able to take smaller amounts of higher quality data during their training process and think harder about it and learn more. You don't need to read 2,000 biology textbooks to understand, high school level biology. Maybe you need to read 1, maybe 3. But that 2,000th and first is certainly not going to help you much. And as our models begin to work more that way, we won't need the same massive amounts of training data. But what we want in any case is to find new economic models that work for the whole world, including content owners. And although I think it's clear that if you read a textbook about physics, you get to go do physics later with what you learned, and that's kind of considered okay. If we're going to teach someone else physics using your textbook and using your lesson plans, we'd like to find a way for you to get paid for that. If you teach our models, if you help provide the human feedback, I'd love to find new models for you to get paid based off the success of that. So I think there's a great need for new economic models. I think the current conversation is focused a little bit at the wrong level. And I think what it means to train these models is going to change a lot in the next few years.
Jeremy, you said in an interview that you thought it was very important that the United States and Britain and countries like that win the AI war versus China. Explain what you mean and why you think it's important.
I think that probably mischaracterizes the gist of what I was trying to say. I think that when it comes to setting global AI standards, it's very important that they reflect liberal democratic values. But I think it is really important that we talk to countries like China because in the end, I mean, I think one of the most interesting things about this morning's discussion is, Sam has a sign saying no one knows the future, but we do have agency over the future, and that is the tension between the two. And I think that, we are incredibly lucky that people like Sam are helping to transform humanity's prospects for the future. I don't think anyone in this room thinks the world would be a better place if there wasn't AI. But we have choices now, and the choice we need to make is how to harness it so that it is a force for good. I actually think that means talking to countries like China, because one of the ways it would be a force for bad is if it just became a tool in a new geostrategic superpower race with much of the energy put into weapons rather than things that could actually transform our daily lives. And those are choices we make, and one of the ways that you avoid that happening is by having a dialogue with countries like China over common ground. But I think we should, whilst being humble about not being able to predict the future, remember that we do have control over the laws, the regulations. We have the ability to shape this journey. And I think we should also look at history and say, look at the Industrial Revolution, the computer revolution. Where those revolutions succeeded was where the benefits were spread evenly throughout society and not concentrated in small groups. In the case of AI, I would say the challenge is to make sure the benefits are spread throughout the world, north and south, developing world and developed world, and not just concentrated in advanced economies, because otherwise that will deepen some of the fractures that are already, in my view, taking us in the wrong direction.
Julie, what do you think about this? Because Accenture works all over the world. Do you think that this has the potential to create a kind of new arms race in technology?
Again, being practical, one would hope, given we've all learned the lessons of having different regulations in data privacy, that we would spend as much time thinking, can we find common ground and use this to work with some of the places where we are having these around something that is objectively necessary if you want to have any kind of globalization, to say, let's have common standards. So on the optimist side of me says, let's use this as a way of collaboration, taking out some of the geopolitics of it, because there is really good sense in it. I'm reminded in this conversation, we have a leadership essential at Accenture that I try to look at every day. It says, lead with excellence, confidence, and humility. And Jeremy, you just talked about being humble. I think one of the most important things we all have to do as leaders and countries is have a good sense of humility around this. Make sure we're talking to each other. That's why Davos is so important. It's why the work we just did together with KPMG and PwC and the WEF on trust and digital trust and learning and reading. I think there's a lot we have to do to educate ourselves and then try to start to think differently.
Albert, for you, when you look at how do you think China will regulate medicine in a different way, or some of these issues? We've had the issue come up with gene editing, where there was that famous case of a Chinese doctor who decided to try to do gene editing to prevent AIDS, and the Chinese government actually jailed him because of a global convention. Could you imagine something like that happening with AI?
I don't know what can happen with AI. As some said, nobody knows. And I don't know how China eventually will think about those things. What I know it is that in life sciences, China is making tremendous progress. Right now, I think there are even more biotechs in China than exist in the US, or in the UK, or in Europe. I think the Chinese government is committed to develop basic science in life science. And I think in a few years we'll start seeing the first new molecular entities coming from China and not from the US.
Wow. All right, I'm going to close by asking a slightly...
Let me put it this way, not only from the
Not
US,
only, yeah.
because US will continue to produce.
I'm going to close by asking a question slightly unrelated to all this, but Sam, you were involved in what is perhaps the most widely publicized boardroom scandal in recent decades. What lesson did you learn from that, other than trust Satya Nadella?
Sam, at least he's asking you when you only have 42 seconds left, so you know.
You can take more. I think people will wait to hear this answer.
I mean, a lot of things. Trying to think what I can say.
Be honest.
At some point, you just have to laugh. Like at some point, it just gets it's so ridiculous. But I think, I mean, I could point to all the obvious lessons that you don't want to leave important. You don't know important but not urgent problems out there hanging. And we had known that our board had gotten too small, and we knew that we didn't have the level of experience we needed. But last year was such a wild year for us in so many ways that we sort of just neglected it. I think one more important thing, though, is as the world gets closer to AGI, the stakes, the stress, the level of tension, that's all going to go up. And for us, this was a microcosm of it, but probably not the most stressful experience we ever face. And one thing that I've sort of observed for a while is every one step we take closer to very powerful AI, everybody's character gets like plus 10 crazy points. It's a very stressful thing, and it should be, because we're trying to be responsible about very high stakes. And so I think that one lesson is as we, the whole world, get closer to very powerful AI, I expect more strange things, and having a higher level of preparation, more resilience, more time spent thinking about all of the strange ways things can go wrong, that's really important. The best thing I learned throughout this, by far, was about the strength of our team. When the board first asked me, like the day after firing me, if I want to talk about coming back, my immediate response was no, because I was just very pissed about a lot of things about it. And then, I quickly kind of like got to my senses, and I realized I didn't want to see all the value get destroyed and all these wonderful people who had put their lives into this and all of our customers. But I did also know, and I had seen it from watching the executive team and really the whole company do stuff in that period of time. Like, the company would be fine without me. The team, either the people that I hired or how I mentored them or whatever you want to call it, like they were ready to do it. And that was such a satisfying thing, both personally about, whatever I had done, but like knowing that all of us, the whole team, had built this like unbelievably high functioning and tight organization. That was my best learning of the whole thing.
Thank you all.